Why Sagittarius is both heaven and hell in human form. The spiritual revelation. Have you ever met someone whose presence feels like standing at the edge of a cliff at sunrise? Terrifying and breathtaking at the same time? Someone whose laughter can lift you out of your darkest thoughts, yet whose words can slice straight through your illusions. That is the frequency of Sagittarius. Not just a fire sign, but a living crossroads between heaven and hell, spirit and instinct, truth and temptation. Sagittarius is the soul who was born with an arrow in their hand and a question in their heart. What is real? And they will burn through comfort, routine, even relationships to find the answer. Being close to this energy can feel like liberation and confrontation all at once. They inspire you to dream bigger, to stop settling, to remember the wild parts of yourself you tried to tame. But they also mirror the places where you are still small, still afraid, still dishonest with your own heart. In this video, we are not here to flatter Sagittarius. We are here to reveal the spiritual contract behind their restless spirit. The reason they can be both your greatest blessing and your most painful lesson. If you feel called by these words, stay with me until the very end. And if, along the way, something in your soul whispers, "This is me," I invite you to like this video, share it with another restless heart, and subscribe to Zodiac Wisdom so we can keep walking this path of truth together. Gate 1: The Sacred Fire. The truth that burns before it heals. To understand Sagittarius, you must first understand fire. Not the gentle warmth of a candle, but the roaring blaze that consumes everything untrue. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, truth, and divine wisdom. Yet for Sagittarius, truth is never handed down from heaven. It is forged in motion, in experience, in the chaos of living. They are born seekers, souls who cannot sit still in comfort, because comfort dulls their spiritual pulse. They learn not through obedience but through wandering. Not through memorizing dogma but through confronting life directly. If life is a map, Sagittarius refuses to follow anyone else's directions. They must draw their own. There is a sacred restlessness that lives inside them, one that both fascinates and frustrates those who love them. They crave meaning the way others crave safety. They chase horizons not because they are lost, but because they understand that the horizon always moves, just as truth does. They are allergic to stagnation, terrified of spiritual death disguised as stability. Many mistake this for inconsistency, but it is not. It is evolution. Sagittarius changes not because they are fickle, but because they are alive to the call of growth. Their souls are built like wild horses, born to run, not to be caged. To be close to a Sagittarius is to feel that fire brush against your own boundaries. They will challenge your beliefs, not to belittle you but to free you. They will ask questions no one else dares to ask, and sometimes their honesty feels cruel. But that honesty is their devotion. For them, truth is not optional, it is sacred. They cannot love you while lying to you. They cannot stay silent while watching you betray yourself. Sagittarius does not do small talk. They do soul talk. That's why their connections, when real, feel like awakenings. Think of those rare people who enter your life and suddenly everything expands. Your thoughts, your possibilities, your courage. That is Sagittarius energy at work. They ignite something ancient inside you. The remembrance that your spirit was never meant to shrink. But their fire comes with a cost. Because they burn so brightly, they can also scorch. Their words can pierce like arrows, not because they wish to wound, but because they aim for the truth with no filter. In their rawest form, Sagittarius speaks straight from the solar plexus, the seat of divine will, and sometimes their delivery outruns their empathy. Yet beneath that wild honesty lies a heart guided by faith. Sagittarius is not the cynic, they are the eternal believer. Even when life breaks them, they rebuild their hope from the ashes. You will rarely see a Sagittarius stay down for long. They rise with laughter, even if their eyes are still wet. They believe that everything, even the heartbreaks, even the betrayals, has purpose. Because they've learned, often through painful trial, that the only way to discover divine truth is to lose every false one first. Consider someone like Winston Churchill, whose Sagittarius moon gave him unbreakable vision amid war, or Jane Austen, whose Sagittarian wit disguised sharp spiritual insight beneath humor, or Bruce Lee, who embodied the Sagittarian creed. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. Each carried the flame of Sagittarius, the courage to question, the faith to keep moving, and the wisdom to make meaning out of chaos. But there's a deeper layer still. The Sagittarian soul isn't just chasing adventure. It's seeking God through experience. Their temples are not built of stone, but of sky, laughter, and risk. Their prayers are whispered not in quiet chapels but in open fields, foreign cities, or late-night conversations that stretch into dawn. Sagittarius believes that life itself is the pilgrimage, that every mistake is a clue, and every ending a new path to higher understanding. This is why they cannot stay too long in one place, because every ending for them is a divine invitation to begin again. And yet, this sacred fire can consume them. When they lose their spiritual compass, the seeker becomes the escapist. The same arrow that once pointed toward truth begins to aim blindly into addictions, distractions, or endless movement. They can burn bridges as quickly as they light them. Their greatest lesson is not to find freedom by running, but by rooting their fire in purpose. The world does not need Sagittarius to wander endlessly. It needs them to wander consciously. When Sagittarius learns to anchor their fire, to let their expansion come with direction, their presence becomes unstoppable. They no longer chase meaning. They embody it. They become living teachers, spiritual philosophers wrapped in human skin. Their laughter heals. Their stories awaken. Their faith uplifts. And the same fire that once destroyed now becomes light that guides others home. When you meet such a Sagittarius, you will feel it instantly. They look at life not as a problem to solve but as a mystery to experience. They remind you that faith and freedom are not opposites. They are twin flames of the same truth. That the soul's greatest adventure is remembering what it already knows. Gate to the shadow path. When freedom becomes isolation, every Sagittarius carries within them a paradox. The need to belong and the refusal to be bound. It is their most beautiful contradiction and their deepest wound. Freedom is their oxygen. It keeps their spirit alive. Yet too much of it and they begin to drift, lost in their own horizon. Sagittarius lives in a constant dance between connection and escape. They long for deep bonds, but the moment they feel trapped, they vanish like smoke. They crave love that understands their need for space, and space that still feels like love. Few people can hold that tension without trying to control it, and so Sagittarius often ends up misunderstood, accused of being distant or unreliable, when in truth they are only trying to breathe. The shadow of Sagittarius is not cruelty, it is avoidance. When their heart starts to ache, they move. When pain grows heavy, they distract. Their motion becomes medicine but also escape. They tell themselves they are chasing purpose, but sometimes they are running from stillness. Stillness terrifies them because stillness reveals what freedom cannot hide: the fear of emptiness. Beneath their laughter and boundless optimism lives a deep spiritual loneliness, the ache of a soul that knows the world is not its home. They are the eternal traveler, searching for a belonging that cannot be found in geography, success, or even love, because what they are truly seeking is reunion with themselves. This is the dark night of the Sagittarius soul. When every new adventure starts to feel the same, when every horizon begins to blur, and no matter how far they go, something inside whispers, "You're still here." They realize that the world cannot fill the silence inside them, because that silence is sacred space, the call of the divine asking them to stop running. It is in this moment that Sagittarius begins to transform from the wanderer into the wise one. They learn that freedom without purpose is just another prison, and adventure without inner truth is just distraction dressed as destiny. Many Sagittarians face this awakening through heartbreak. The person they thought would understand them doesn't. The life they built out of passion suddenly feels empty. The dreams they chased begin to feel like cages made of gold. They look around and wonder how the path that once felt like flight now feels like exile. It is here, in the ashes of their own independence, that their true spiritual initiation begins. The universe whispers, "You wanted truth. This is it. Now stop running and look within." When Sagittarius turns inward, everything changes. For the first time, they discover that freedom is not the absence of limits. It is the presence of alignment. True freedom is not doing whatever they want. It is becoming who they truly are. The real adventure is not out there but inside. The journey of reconciling the seeker and the settler, the wanderer and the witness. It is a journey that transforms loneliness into solitude, restlessness into revelation. Take the example of a Sagittarian like Beethoven. He was fiery, rebellious, defiant of authority, refusing to bow to kings or conventions. Yet his greatest work, his Ninth Symphony, was born not from travel or pleasure, but from silence, composed when he could no longer hear. That is the alchemy of Sagittarius' shadow. When the outer fire burns out, the inner light begins to rise. When they surrender to stillness, Sagittarius reconnects with the divine teacher inside, the voice that has always been guiding them through every change. They realize that faith is not something to find in temples or teachings, but something to remember in their own breath. That moment of stillness becomes their homecoming. They stop running from commitment because they understand that commitment does not cage them. It roots them. It gives their arrow a direction, their passion a purpose, and their wisdom a place to bloom. Yet even as they awaken, the shadow never fully disappears. Freedom will always call to them. The horizon will always whisper. But now they no longer chase it blindly. They walk toward it with awareness, carrying the understanding that every road eventually circles back to the self. They can love deeply now because they no longer fear losing themselves in love. They can stay because staying no longer feels like dying. When a Sagittarius integrates their shadow, their energy changes everything around them. They become mentors, storytellers, spiritual travelers who guide others through the labyrinth of their own becoming. They teach that the point of the journey was never the destination, it was who you become on the way. And perhaps that is the secret of Sagittarius. They are both student and teacher, wanderer and guide, heaven and hell. They walk between joy and pain with open eyes and an open heart, knowing that both are sacred, both are part of the truth. So when you meet a Sagittarius who seems to vanish, don't chase them. Pray for them. Because when they return, and they always do, they will return with stories that carry the medicine of the soul. They will come back not as the one who ran, but as the one who found. Gate 3: The Arrow and the Truth. The power of divine vision. To truly understand Sagittarius, you must picture an arrow drawn back, trembling with potential, aimed toward something unseen. That arrow is their soul. Every Sagittarius is born with an inner compass that hungers for truth. Yet that truth is not always about facts or logic. It is a living, breathing flame that asks, "What is my purpose? Why am I here?" Their journey through life is the eternal tension between that pull of destiny and the gravity of human distraction. They are guided not by maps but by instinct, not by rules but by faith. And though they may wander through countless detours, that arrow always finds its way home to the heart of divine truth. Sagittarius is the philosopher of the zodiac. But unlike Aquarius who seeks through innovation or Virgo who seeks through analysis, Sagittarius seeks through experience. They don't just want to know truth, they want to live it, taste it, wrestle with it. They believe that truth, if it's real, must survive contact with chaos. That's why they chase adventure, debate passionately, question religion, challenge systems, and break every rule that feels hollow. To the unready, this can seem rebellious. But to those who see deeper, it is sacred rebellion, the soul's refusal to settle for half-truths. Sagittarius does not ask permission to expand. Expansion is their birthright. But divine vision doesn't come without sacrifice. Every Sagittarius will face moments when their ideals collide with reality, when their faith is tested by disappointment, betrayal, or loss. These are the moments when the universe stretches their bow so far back it feels like breaking. Yet the farther that bow is drawn, the greater the distance their arrow will travel. Their heartbreaks are not punishments, they are calibration. They strip away illusions until only truth remains. When Sagittarius rises into spiritual maturity, they become storytellers of divine proportion. Their words are not mere opinions, they are transmissions. Their laughter doesn't just entertain, it liberates. Their optimism isn't naive, it's prophetic. They can stand in the middle of devastation and still see meaning in the debris. They know that every collapse is a cosmic setup for revelation. Because to Sagittarius, the universe is not random. It is a vast classroom, and every joy and every sorrow is a teacher in disguise. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., a Sagittarius whose dream was not just political, it was spiritual. He saw a vision of humanity beyond fear, beyond division, and he dared to speak it into existence. Or think of Mark Twain, whose humor exposed the truth of human hypocrisy. Or Walt Disney, who built entire worlds from imagination, proving that belief itself is a creative force. Each of them held the Sagittarian code: faith in the unseen, courage in the unknown, and truth above comfort. Sagittarius has a rare relationship with truth. It is both their obsession and their burden. They can see beyond surface motives, beyond masks, beyond the illusions that others cling to for safety. But this sight comes with a cost. When they speak truth too early, they are called reckless. When they refuse to conform, they are called arrogant. When they follow their vision instead of the crowd, they are called lost. But the wise Sagittarius learns that the path of the visionary is not to be understood. It is to be fulfilled. Their spiritual gift is prophecy, though not always in the mystical sense. Sagittarius doesn't predict the future. They reveal potential. They look at people and see not who they are, but who they could be if they were brave enough to rise. They see paths others overlook, connections others dismiss, miracles others fear to believe in. This is why Sagittarius energy can feel overwhelming. It's not that they're trying to control. It's that they see so much possibility that they struggle to contain it. But here's the paradox. The same arrow that carries divine vision can also wound when fired without mindfulness. In their eagerness to enlighten, Sagittarius can become blunt, forgetting that truth without compassion is a sword, not a flame. They can mistake honesty for permission to speak without care. Their lesson then is sacred restraint, to let their words become medicine, not weapons. Because when a Sagittarius learns to temper truth with tenderness, their voice becomes the voice of awakening itself. They begin to understand that the purpose of truth is not to prove, but to free. That not every battle needs to be fought, and not every illusion must be shattered in one blow. Sometimes truth must arrive like sunrise, slow, gentle, inevitable. And Sagittarius, in their highest form, learns to be that sunrise. When they reach this stage, their energy changes the atmosphere. You'll feel it in the way they listen, with eyes that see beyond your pain into your potential. You'll feel it in the way they speak, with conviction that pierces confusion but never shames. You'll feel it in their laughter, because they know that joy is the language of God. The mature Sagittarius no longer shoots arrows wildly into the world. They aim with purpose. They become teachers, healers, and visionaries who understand that the greatest truth is love itself. And perhaps that is the final revelation of Sagittarius, that truth is not found by seeking, but by surrendering. It's not something they must chase across the earth. It's something they must allow to rise from within. When Sagittarius stops running and stands still under the sky they once chased, they realize that the horizon was never moving. They were. The truth was always there, waiting for them to stop long enough to see it. Gate 4: the sacred flame. Turning knowledge into wisdom and vision into service. There comes a point in every Sagittarius journey when the thrill of knowing is no longer enough. They have read the books, crossed the oceans, asked the questions that burn through every illusion, and still something inside whispers, "Now live what you've learned." This is the sacred threshold between knowledge and wisdom, between the seeker and the sage. It is the moment when Sagittarius stops chasing truth as an idea and begins embodying it as a way of being. Because knowledge fills the mind, but wisdom fills the world. And Sagittarius was never meant to keep their discoveries to themselves. They came to share fire. The mature Sagittarius becomes a torchbearer. Their fire is no longer wild and consuming. It becomes focused, steady, and radiant. They are no longer searching for meaning in distant lands. They bring meaning wherever they go. They become storytellers, teachers, mentors, travelers of the soul who help others remember their own light. You can see this transformation in their eyes. The restlessness softens into clarity. The laughter deepens into knowing. Their joy is no longer escapism. It is evidence of faith. They've learned that real enlightenment doesn't mean rising above life, but walking within it with grace. But this stage is not achieved through perfection. It's born of surrender. Sagittarius learns, often painfully, that intelligence alone cannot heal the world. Only compassion can. They begin to realize that wisdom isn't about being right. It's about being real. It's not about showing others the light. It's about walking beside them through their darkness until they find their own flame. The most powerful Sagittarians are not those standing on mountains preaching truth. They are the ones kneeling in the valley, holding lanterns for those still afraid of the night. Many Sagittarians who reach this phase become catalysts for collective awakening. They teach through presence more than through words. Their energy expands rooms not because of ego but because of resonance. People feel safe around them, inspired yet grounded. Their laughter reminds others that joy is not a luxury. It's a sign of spiritual alignment. Their curiosity becomes contagious, making even ordinary life feel like a sacred classroom. You cannot stay asleep in their presence. They make you remember that your soul is infinite. And yet, even as their light grows, Sagittarius continues to wrestle with humility. The danger of vision is arrogance, the belief that seeing farther means knowing better. The true Sagittarian sage must constantly purify their fire with empathy. They must remember that wisdom is circular, not hierarchical, that the student and teacher are one. Every conversation becomes a mirror, every encounter a teaching. The more they give, the more they receive. This is their divine paradox. They expand by emptying, lead by listening, and grow by giving away what they once clung to. Look at the lives of great Sagittarians who reached this sacred flame. Think of Jane Fonda, whose activism evolved from rebellion to awareness. Of Steven Spielberg, whose storytelling became a vessel for empathy. Of Rumi, the mystic poet who turned longing into divine love. They each show what happens when Sagittarius learns that the true arrow doesn't point outward. It points inward, then radiates outward like light through glass. Their wisdom touches not only minds but spirits. When Sagittarius transforms their restless fire into conscious service, they fulfill their highest calling, to be living bridges between heaven and earth. They show that faith is not naive, it's courageous. That laughter can be holy. That adventure can be an act of worship. They remind us that every journey, no matter how chaotic, is a sacred conversation between the human and the divine. In this final stage, Sagittarius learns the secret they've been chasing all along. They were never meant to find truth. They were meant to become it. Their life becomes a sermon written in motion, a dance between knowing and not knowing, a flame that doesn't burn but warms. Wherever they go, they leave behind sparks, moments of awakening in those who cross their path. And that, perhaps, is their true legacy. To make others remember that enlightenment is not a destination. It is a way of walking open, brave, and endlessly curious. So when you meet a Sagittarius who has lived long enough to tame their fire, stay close. Listen. Watch how they move through the world. They will not promise to save you, but they will remind you that you were never lost. They will not preach about freedom. They will show you how to live it. They are the embodiment of the truth they once sought. That heaven and hell are not separate realms but two flames within the same soul. And the sacred task is learning how to hold both without burning. Conclusion: the return to light. And so, Sagittarius, we come full circle. The same fire that once made you restless now makes you radiant. The same hunger that once drove you to search now feeds your faith. You began as the wanderer, chasing truth through every corner of existence. But you end as the flame itself, the light that no longer needs to search because it remembers where it came from. Your journey was never about finding answers. It was about becoming one through laughter, through heartbreak, through every sacred detour that taught you how to trust the invisible path beneath your feet. You've learned that freedom without love is emptiness, and love without freedom is fear. That truth is not a sword to wield but a mirror to face. That every time you lost your way, it was not punishment, it was divine redirection. The universe was never trying to tame you. It was trying to teach you how to fly without fleeing. You are not here to escape this world, Sagittarius. You are here to bless it, to remind the weary that joy is a form of courage and that curiosity is prayer in motion. So keep walking but walk with awareness. Keep seeking but seek with humility. Let your laughter be your offering and your wisdom your service. Because when you live from the light within, even your silence becomes guidance. And when others see that light in you, they will remember their own. If these words have touched something in your spirit, let them anchor there. Like this video, share it with someone whose soul still burns for truth, and subscribe to Zodiac Wisdom, so we can continue this journey together. Because the fire of Sagittarius was never meant to end. It was meant to ignite the world.